Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us Nicole McLaren Campbell. Nicole is a professional speaker, educator, and entrepreneur. Driven by a passion for empowerment, she represented Jamaica at MIT's Junior Summit and was selected to address then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan at just 13 years old. She was subsequently featured in local and international media, including CNN and Nickelodeon, and was chosen as one of 20 teens who will change the world by Teen People magazine. She is a graduate of the St. Andrew High School for Girls and completed her high school studies at Phillips Academy Andover in Massachusetts before going on to earn an undergraduate degree in economics from Princeton University in 2006. Nicole also studied at the Stanford University Summer Institute and the University of London, where she earned a master's degree in Globalization and Development. In late 2016, Nicole started the Aim Higher Foundation with a mandate to identify, develop, and empower promising low-income students so that they can too access and unlock their potential through access to tertiary education. Her vision is to inspire youth globally to aim higher. So without further delay, welcome Nicole.
Hey, thank you for having me, Yannick.
Wonderful. So, Nicole, we would like to always give our guests the opportunity to share with us a little bit about their journey, how it is that they've accomplished so much in so little time, and what are some of the founding principles that drives them to want to be successful every single day.
Well, I think that part of it is making sure and trying to protect your motivation every single day as much as possible and being deliberate about your approach every single day, and then wherever possible trying to coach your team in a similar way, but also being very cognizant that as a leader as well as a parent, I guess being a parent is also being a leader, but as a leader you've got to lead by example, and I think that's something I take really, really seriously. And so it's about taking a deliberate approach and understanding yourself and how the brain works and how the human body works, and then doing what you can every day to get the most out of both of them.
Excellent. So you are the founder of your company, which is, could you tell us a little bit about your company and what it is that you do, and why do you think customer experience is important to that whole process?
At AIM, so we're AIM Educational Services. When I just started AIM about 7 years ago, it stood for aspiration, inspiration, motivation. So aspiration, inspiration, motivation is the meaning behind AIM. And every single day, we aim to empower students to unlock their potential and really chart an education and career path that's fulfilling to them based on their interests and talents. And the customer experience is really important to us here at AIM because, how people feel about the service you're delivering, and from the minute they make contact with you on the phone or you make contact with them via an email or an initial meeting to the very moment the service is actually delivered, to even after their feeling about how they were dealt with and the experience they had with each person that forms a part of AIM is really important. It's important, for us to, of course, deliver the end game, which is admission to college or scholarships. But it's also important that the journey that a family takes with us is one that they feel empowered during and feel, feel great about. And we don't always get it right, Yannick. We don't always get it right, but the whole point is that as human beings, when we make a mistake, we have to own that mistake completely. I made a pretty large blunder yesterday, and I'm not afraid to talk about that, because I think what everybody needs to understand as business owners and even as human beings, as we try to do our best in life, is that sometimes we fall short, right? Because we're not perfect.
True.
And I think the most important thing in business, as well as just in one's daily life, is that when you fall short, be very, very quick to own it and to learn the lesson and ensure, you apologize and take responsibility, and then put in place what you need to try and ensure it doesn't happen again. But instead, a lot of people hide when they make mistakes or hide when they fall short, and that really it puts a bad taste in the mouth of your customer, of course. It shows your team that instead of taking on something hands-on and taking responsibility and dealing with it, that it's okay to make an excuse or give a reason, and then that will set the tone. So, it's not always perfect, and we do fall short, but the idea is that when you do fall short, own that and take the lesson and then move on. And of course, apologize and try to make it right with that customer.
Excellent. Great feedback. So, you're speaking our language. You're speaking the language of many of our listeners that listen to this podcast in terms of service recovery. So all of what you described a while ago was, owning the problem, taking responsibility, dealing with it at the first point of contact, and not letting it linger, because when you linger, then the compensation that you have to apply to that situation becomes even greater.
And then maybe then it becomes irrecoverable even.
Exactly. Totally.
And what you have to understand is that as business owners, we really have to deliver that wow experience, because word of mouth, especially in the era of social media, you're one tweet away from total disaster, So word of mouth is very important. Word of mouth is very important in terms of keeping a business alive and growth, That word of mouth means you don't have to be running all over the place, spending a lot of money trying to market. It can really drive a business.
Very true. So we spoke about what it is that AIM does in terms of delivering customer service, but we're all customers in our own rights of different businesses. How do you feel about customer service and customer experience as a customer yourself, doing business here on a regional level or even internationally?
Sorry, I'm hesitating so much, but I'm trying to think of myself as a customer, just why I'm super, I don't like to use the word busy, but I have a lot going on. So I like a service that is delivered in an efficient way, where the communication is very clear from the get-go, and where I am really treated as somebody that's important. In other words, not with that cavalier attitude, but I like when the provider makes things easier for me. In other words, I don't have an issue paying the bill or doing, whatever it takes, but at the end of the day, as easy as you can make it for me to actually consume your service or use your service, is the easier it is for me. So, make it possible for me to send somebody to collect something, or, send it to me, for example, or, give me a reminder when I need to get something done. I think those are, the world is moving so fast. Certainly my days move super quickly. So, I think it's also instructive to challenge business owners to put themselves in the shoes of the customer, because as a mother, wife, you're running a business, you're trying to be a great, civic citizen and leader as well. There is a lot going on, and I put myself in the shoes of my customers. So I will say, yes, I know, I'll say to my team, I know we have sent an email reminder out about this, but not everybody checks their email every day. Or in the same way that I can miss an email, the customer could have missed the email too, So we're college advising, and we're helping families to chart the educational path of their child, and we're tutoring. And that means that the parent plays a significant role, but you can't just you have to be responsible. AIM has to be responsible at the end of the day for the deliverables. So you can't just say, well, I emailed the parent and they're supposed to now do this and they haven't done it, so it's their fault. No, at the end of the day, I have to put myself in the shoes of my clients and say, boy, the same way I'm busy and I would, really appreciate a text message reminder, or, I would really appreciate if all the information is communicated one time instead of piece up, or, piece by piece for the international listeners. It's just about just continuous improvement. I was reading this book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and it's talking about how people can be in a job for 20 years, but they get the same 1 year of experience 20 times, as opposed to 20 significant years of experience where you're growing and improving every year. And that's a deliberate thing that you have to keep in mind as a person, but also as a business owner, that your business really shouldn't be at the same stage this year as it was last year. You really shouldn't be doing things in an identical way. It's like, how can you make the experience better? So we keep looking, we have management meetings every week with our team, and then we have strategic planning meetings every 2 weeks. And I'm really about that because it really keeps us focused on the fact that it's all about constant improvement and really making sure that we're flexible to change, because we're dealing with Generation Z kids. We're dealing with parents who are Generation X. And so it means we have to communicate with them in different ways, for example, because both of them are customers, you know what I mean? True. So whereas, the email might work for the parents, maybe it is a WhatsApp that's working for the student, or, maybe we need to be delivering messages through an app instead of through, you know what I'm saying, Yannick? So it's just this constant idea of how can I make this experience better for the customer? How can I make the deliverable of this service, actually happen, and not just sort of say, well, I did my part, but how can I constantly try to provide support and really empower my customer, and understanding how your different users or customers receive and process information, and what different things prompts each kind of sector to action. Can't treat the student the same way or try to communicate necessarily the student the same way you do it with the parent. So it's just trying to be sensitive to that and really making sure it's a customer-centered business, which it has to be.
Agreed, fully agreed. So with all of that in mind, in terms of what you spoke about, in terms of you being the customer, the things that you anticipate as a customer, what your expectations are, and if the service provider is actually meeting and exceeding those expectations. Now, your customers are also your internal customers, right? And
yes.
What size is your team currently?
Boy. My team, so how we're structured is that we have part-time college consultants, part-time tutors. We'll have a core full-time team of 7 people, and then everybody else is part-time. We have about 15 part-time tutors, and then another 7 invigilators, and then we outsource things like accounts and other
administrative stuff.
So yes, that's about where the team is right now. But we have the part-time college consultants. We have like 4 of them. So I think if we do all the math, it might be just under 30.
Okay, so that's a pretty decent sized team. In some school of thought, that would be considered a small to medium size organization. So you have all of these people and they're having constant contact within your organization. I want to tie it into the fact that you've recently become a published author, which we'd love to congratulate you on.
Thank you.
So your book is about making it count, the tips on unlocking your vision, and some of the key points that you talk about in the book is fear, having courage to ask for what you want, procrastination, and tuning into your purpose and staying motivated. So how do you do all those things for your team members? Because at the end of the day, if your team doesn't grow, then your company can't grow.
No, that is like really key, really key. So part of it is now this insistence on a weekly management meeting, like a weekly team meeting, is very key. All members of the full-time core, we meet every single week. And it's, again, remember I said the leading by example. Nobody wants to hear their boss preaching to them every week about whatever. So I don't try to preach at all. But we do things like we have a book club now here at AIM, and every month somebody else gets to choose the book. And so I'm deliberate with my choices because I'm trying to sneak in the coaching and inspiration through the book club, even though they don't know it. So I hope they're not listening to this. But also, I try to impart a lot of what I've learned just in the day-to-day of it, Like when I make an error, as I said, I own that up 150% so that they can get from me no excuses, Things like that are important. I've arranged a vision board workshop for my team in the past, and now we're due another one. I bring in inspirational person to lead our strategic sessions and to work with us in terms of business coaching, because that's really important. So part of it is they see me every day, so I'm not trying to do like all of that coaching work myself, some of it, but also just to introduce external people who can help with that. But there's nothing better than leading by example, and then trying to make sure that just from the way we set our vision and the things we talk about every week and the different situations that come up in the office with clients or with students or whatever, that the idea of it's all possible, removing obstacles, focusing on solutions and not problems. These are the things that we really do on an everyday basis in various different ways, and I try to be very deliberate about that. And then the other thing is that I try to look for opportunities for them to grow, just as the same way I seek opportunities to grow myself and to grow my knowledge. So just this morning I was talking to my assistant about an online course that I wanted to do, and I recommended that he also take it, because I think that based on what he's interested in, that it can be a useful skill set. So, that emphasis on continuous growth and improvement, where I try to share these opportunities as they come up and, be deliberate about the different types of exposure and experiences I want them to have internationally every year. So, we're looking all around for those opportunities all the time.
Very good. Very good. So it's all about continuous improvement, learning and growth, getting your team to really raise the bar, to be better, to be a better version of themselves today than they were yesterday, and to just keep doing that consistently.
Yes.
Now, if you were talking to another business owner who they had a brick and mortar type of setup, kind of like what you're doing now, but they're looking more to branch off into the online space, what are some important considerations that you would recommend to them in moving away from dealing with clients face-to-face and more on an online base? Because it's two different kind of approaches, even though the customer experience the strategy should still be the same, to delight and exceed the customer's expectations. But people online have a different expectation sometimes from persons face to face. Would there be one or two things that you would give them as tips?
Well, to be perfectly honest, this is really the year 2017 when AIM really plans to expand its online presence and to do more work remotely with students all over the world. So far, we've had students from almost every Caribbean country, Barbados and Trinidad and Guyana and St. Lucia, etc., as well as USA, Canada and UK. But those have basically come from word of mouth. So we're really looking to establish more of a presence in some of these countries to really do more online work. I would say with students we work online with, the idea is that, for us anyway, based on how we're working with students, just to make sure that they're kept in the loop and don't miss out on any opportunities that face-to-face students have. So I think the challenge for us is just to, and I think for any business owner trying to do more online, is to make sure that the experience is as similar as possible to to what a real life face-to-face experience would be like,
Yes.
Making sure things like the software you're using actually works. Making sure that when it's time for their meeting, you're not like having internet problems and the call dropping and they feel like, oh my gosh, if I was there in person, then it would be a better experience. For us, as I said, it's just making sure that they have the same access to group sessions, so looping them in via video conference, making sure they're, getting the same communication and having the same number of meetings, and that as much as possible, it feels like intimate, and maybe that might involve them getting one or two more extra online one-to-one meetings than you would somebody who comes to you face-to-face. But I think whatever it takes to make that happen, then you just have to do. But the beauty of it is most of our communication is done online anyway, so it really doesn't feel that much different from a face-to-face. But it depends on the business you're in. I would say examine the business you're in and just try to see how you can ensure that the two experiences are as similar in terms of the deliverable as possible.
Excellent. So basically they need to ensure that they assess whether or not the experience is very similar to the face-to-face experience, and they should also look for opportunities to make the experience as quality as the one that they would have had face-to-face, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, as a business owner, a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, a citizen of the country, how do you stay motivated every day? I mean, I'm sure you get that question all the time. Like, how do you maintain your level of enthusiasm and energy every single day?
Boy, what a question. And Yanni, I believe in full disclosure, full authenticity as much as possible. And so first of all, I'm going to say that I don't maintain it every single day. And what I mean is, it's not that I don't try every single day, but sometimes you sort of just don't get there for whatever reason. I think that's what really counts, is that even sometimes you're not, let's face it, sometimes you're not 100% feeling it, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just feel popped down for whatever reason. So I'll just share with you that I am actually a bit sick right now. I'm sick. I think I have a sinus infection coming on, or I'm getting the flu, one or the other. And it makes me really, really tired. And when I have low energy, then I just can't do anything as well as I normally could. And so what that means for me is that I have to understand my body at that point too, and maybe I need some extra sleep, for example, which I managed to get yesterday. So sometimes I don't feel 100% motivated, ready to get the world. Yesterday was a very hard day for me to even just get through what I had to, and I had to end my day early so that I could get some rest. And so then, that would help me with today, where I'm not at 100%, but I'm not where I was yesterday, Gotcha. And so when I'm feeling low on energy, I pray about it and just do as much as I can, understanding that I'm not 100% myself, but I will be. I'm not being too hard on myself about that or worrying about that too much, because sometimes it's the worry and anxiety that kills us. And as business owners, you always feel this pressure to lead by example. So I don't want to have a meltdown, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself. And show your team too that it's okay to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't bring 100% to your job anyway. You'll just be sitting at the desk and you're not doing anything, productivity all the way down.
True. So
it's very important in staying motivated to know your body and know when you might need to pull back a little bit. But my system really, Yannick, is just develop really good habits. I try to develop really good habits around my eating and my exercise and my sleep. So I'd say those three things are very important to me: the eating, the exercise, and the sleep. The minute any of these three start to slip,
you feel it.
What the goals are, Yannick.
Yes.
The minute the eating, the exercise, or the sleep worse if it's more than one at the same time, then I know danger zone, disaster, productivity cut down, it just won't work. So because I know that those things are really important, I try to develop good habits and plans around them. So my food, for example, I try to make sure that's prepared like 2 days in advance, so I know exactly what I'm packing to eat today, and I don't have to get stuck being hungry, wondering what to eat, and then possibly making a low energy food choice. Low energy food choice would be like a big fried chicken and rice and peas in the middle of the day, as is the custom in Jamaica in many places. If I eat that, then I feel too tired. I don't have the energy that's necessary to power me through up until when I need to be powered through. And of course, you know what, the job number 2 begins when I get home, because that's when I have to tune into my kids, which, I don't want it any other way, but just be realistic. I have to eat for energy as opposed to necessarily what I feel like eating all the time. So I try to have a plan ahead of that, so I don't have to think about it, make a decision, and then possibly make a bad decision. What I like about habit 2, Yannick, is it cuts down the amount of work that your brain actually has to do. And I really like that, because my brain has to do other really important work during the day. So any other work that my brain doesn't really have to do, I'm about that life. So for example, I'll pick out my gym clothes the evening before, because at the time I wake up in the morning to go to the gym, I really don't want to be making any decisions and thinking too hard about anything really. I just want to go, So I get into the habit of exercising, which powers me up, gives me energy, gives me a feeling of discipline that can carry through the day, gives me a feeling of just winning, and a feeling of, oh my gosh, Nicole, you can do it. You have so much willpower. You're such a winner. And I tell myself all these things. Prayer is really important to me. Every single day, I'm praying, I'm thanking God for things that have happened, things that haven't happened yet, for opportunities. I'm thanking Him for the people in my life and my family. I'm thanking Him for love. I'm thanking Him for a thriving business where my vision is, being realized, and for the different opportunities that are coming my way. And then, as I said, I just make the proper food choices, try to organize my time as best as possible so I can get to bed with the kids. So I put my kids to bed at 7 o'clock. For the past few nights, I have to confess, they have been the one putting me to sleep. Because by the time my big daughter starts to read the story at like 7:30, it's like I'm like knocked out. So that's basically, the food, the exercise, and the sleep is really the 3 things that I try to build a habit around and feed in my spirit, with prayer every day. That's kind of my little routine that I find is super key for helping me to be motivated. And the other thing that's important for me is being really clear about my objectives, not just for the year, but for the week. Because when I feel like I don't have clearly established objectives, then there's so much going on that I just feel overwhelmed. And when I get overwhelmed, I also get worried, anxious, depressed. And so can't make that happen. So I try to plan out my days according to my highest objectives and goals for the year overall.
Awesome. Very good. And I love the fact that, you spoke about, eating properly, sleeping, and also ensuring that you exercise, because those are 3 things for you to be productive, optimally productive. And you're right. In the society that we live in currently, I don't think 90% of Jamaicans are doing those 3 things in a habitual practice. And that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of organizations are not as productive as they could be, because the companies are the people. And if the people are not healthy, they have all of these diseases that many of them we contract from poor eating habits, like hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes. Then they're going to be affected by the quality of work that they put out in the organization.
Oh, absolutely. There is no doubt.
No doubt. Okay, so what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you couldn't absolutely live without in your business?
Solid.
Solid. Could you explain to our listeners what Solid is?
So Solid is this app that tracks all your meetings and allows you to type the meeting notes in while you're having the meeting, and then you can key it as an action item remember I told you, like, if I don't have a clear sense of what I need to get done, then I feel overwhelmed, and then I don't want to do anything. So as soon as I open the app, like right now, it shows me all my action items out of all the meetings that I've had. And nothing is as good as the satisfaction I get
when you get to tick them off.
Ticking them off as done. So I know 3 more pieces of research that I have to do for today. So it's pretty exciting. And then Asana is very important for my team at work because it gives us this awesome way to track where all our students are in our different programs, which, you know, when you're advising a student for 3 years in terms of college planning, there are really different things that you need to do for them and that you need to remind them to do for themselves to, like, you know, create an awesome winning college admissions worthy profile, you know. So I need to remember to research summer programs for, you know, Robert. I need to remember to remind Robert's mom to, you know, link her friend that does environmental planning because he might need a 2-week internship, things like that. And so if we don't have Asana, we're basically lost. So thank God for Asana. So Asana is really good when you have a team and everybody needs to see what everybody else is working on, because sometimes you'll have students who are in our college placement program, they might also be doing tutoring, and those 2 things need to speak to each other. And then for my home team, I have Wonderlist. Wonderlist is a great app. I love it. It's like an Asana, but much simpler. So like my team at home, we wouldn't need Asana. It's like Asana is a bit much for what we need. We need things like that can keep track of the grocery list and see, you know, so for example, one of my housekeepers at home, she is in charge of so I have a tablet in my kitchen, right? So she's in charge of putting the things that we need from the supermarket on the app, and then whatever she gets, she crosses off. So I will know, oh my goodness, there's no more almond milk at home, and she wasn't able to get it from wherever she normally gets it from. So maybe if I have time, I can just stop off, get the almond milk, cross it off the list, rather than, no, I want my chia pudding and there's no almond milk. Like, there's small things, Yannick, I have to tell you, that actually really lead to a woman being quite confused. And I say woman, you know, I'm not sure if this is how it works overseas. In fact, I know it's not how it works overseas, but I find myself responsible for most things having to do with the home. And then my husband is responsible for most things having to do with the outside of the home, like making sure, you know, keeping the outside intact. And he's in charge of all the building projects and all the decorating and all that kind of thing at home. Whereas I'm more in charge of making sure everybody has good things to eat. And so, you know, the Wonderlist also helps me. I have 2 children in school, and then I have a stepdaughter, and sometimes all 3 of them needs things for projects at the same time, or, you know, they have, what was the last day? Valentine's Day projects and things they have to make and do and buy, and it becomes very overwhelming. Small things become big things if you have a lot of things going on, Yanni, to be honest. So I try to organize down to the very last detail. And Wonderlist is wonderful at helping you to do that.
Very good. So
Robert is laughing because every time I add something to his Wonderlist, he's like, why does this app exist? But it's great because you can see what you've done, what you need to get done, and what you need to work on all the time. I think it's fabulous.
Excellent. So you have Solid, you have Wonderlist, and you have Asana. And they all play.
Wonderlist and Asana. Those are my favorite apps ever.
Awesome. All right. Now, what are some of the books that have had the biggest impact on you?
Books. I would say Grit by, there's this book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, which I think is just beyond amazing. Super impact. Really good book. And then there's this other book called The Power of Habit, which has been phenomenal. And then there's another book called No Excuses by Brian Tracy, which has been really phenomenal.
Okay. So those are some of the books that have had the greatest impact on you. Grit and the Brian Tracy book, The Power of Persuasion.
No. Grit, no excuses, and then the power of habit.
Power of habit, okay. And Grit is the power of passion and perseverance by Angela Duckworth, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So these
excellent.
These books that Nicole has recommended for those of our listeners that are listening.
Of course. My own book.
Of course. Make It Count for 2017 and beyond.
Yes.
So those books are all available on Amazon and they'll be in the show notes. So feel free to hop on over to our website and check those out. All right, Nicole. So what is the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people?
The big thing we're working on? Okay. The big thing we're working on is that we are starting tomorrow. We're working with a really awesome, amazing, inspiring business coach. And I'm really excited to see just the results that we'll have out of this accountability, because that's really important for business owners. No matter how inspired and on top of things you are, there's nothing like an external party to keep you accountable. And what I like is for the team, I'm usually the person keeping everybody accountable, like in our weekly meetings, so it's really good to have somebody else keep all of us accountable.
Okay.
And so we're going to start that. Tomorrow is our first meeting with her. She hosted our strategic retreat. And so I'm really excited about that because I'm, really, really knowing that this outside accountability, visionary influence will really cause us to aim higher this year.
Very good. All right. So our listeners that are having the opportunity to listen to this podcast, if they are really inspired by the things that you've shared with us today and they want to connect with you further, where can they find you online?
Oh my Instagram is at Nicole McLaren Campbell, and my website is NicoleMcLarenCampbell.com. I have an Instagram page solely and wholly dedicated to inspiration, and that's Nickspire. And I'm also on Facebook and what's it called? Snapchat. That's where the young people are. That's where all my students are. So my Snap is Nick Mac Campbell, NICMC Campbell, and I'm on Twitter as AIM EDU Services. So that's AIM EDU Services. I'm really everywhere online.
Excellent. Are you also on LinkedIn?
Robert says you should just Google. I'm of course also on LinkedIn naturally. So yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to have the links to all of Nicole's social media extensions on our show notes. So you can connect with her through any of those apps that she just indicated or sites that she indicated that she's on. Okay, so before we wrap the interview up, Nicole, we always like to give our guests an opportunity to share with us a quote or a saying that they go by that during times of adversity or challenge in their life, they revert to this quote to help to re-engage them and reinvigorate them to continue plotting forward. Do you have one of those?
One particular quote?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're challenging me here, Yanni. Not that there's anything wrong with that. All right, can I have more than one? That's not fair.
Sure, of course. More than one. Give us some burrata.
Take it away. All right, burrata, we say. Okay. One thing that I think is really, really important, and I've really been understanding the value of this recently, is that you've got to be focused. Focused, not only as a person, but as an entrepreneur. I got this from Grit, and like the Lord up in heaven, the good Lord knows sometimes what I need to hear, and he keeps sending it in all these different ways, and I'm like, okay, God, I get it, It's focused. In other words, you might be good at a number of things, and you might like a number of things, but you can't pursue them all and be an expert in them all and do all of them to the level of brilliance with the level of impact in the world that you might want to have. So I think it's really important. And they said Warren Buffett is the one who did this exercise with someone where he made them write out 25 goals, career goals or like life goals, and then said, okay, take the the 5 that are like the most important to your life, where you know that no matter what, these are, what really, really drive you. And once you take the 5, cross out the other 20 and focus exclusively on the 5 and don't allow the other 20 to distract you from the 5 core ones that you know are of most importance to you. Because that's exactly what they'll do. You'll end up doing so many things that you don't have focus necessary on any set of things. And then, you find yourself very, very busy, but not necessarily achieving the level of impact that you might want to have. And so that's really what I would say is do less with more focus and really get clear about what your 5 are.
Excellent. So do less with more focus. So that was one quote, right? Or that was just your explanation for the quote?
And the other one I would say is, I would say that this is for when I'm feeling as if really tired. This one I really like is, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. In other words, sometimes it gets hard and you're tired, right? But at the end of the day, if you manage yourself properly, you can get it done. And sometimes you really need to rest. So that's the other one. I mean, I have a million of them. If you check my next time, you can see them. But I think those 2 are so important. And of course, I always say this one, everything begins and ends in your mind. So you have to really force your mind to go further than your present circumstances if you want to change your present circumstances.
True. Very true. I agree with that one for sure. Amazing. So this was a really wonderful interview. Thank you so much, Nicole, despite our original technical challenges.
No problems. But problems are only things to be solved, right?
Exactly.
I learned that a particular network won't allow me on Skype, so I know what to do.
Excellent. So you learned something new today.
I did learn something new. Thank you to you, Yanni. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. So we just want to thank Nicole again for joining us today on this podcast. And we want to remind our podcast listeners that they can hop on over to Facebook on our closed user group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And you can always follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. So until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We really appreciate your support of this podcast. Are you ready to grow your business even more? Or improve your leadership skills? Or train your team members in the art of customer service? Give us a call at 305-848-0815 or visit our website at www.yannickgrant.com. That's YANNIQUEGRANT.com. Remember, 305-848-0815 or visit our website at yannickgrant.com. Our new online course, Mastering Customer Experience and Increasing Your Revenue, is now available. The link for this will be on the show notes of each episode starting September 7, 2016. The first 2 modules are free, so hop on over, have a look, and take the steps to increase your revenue.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.